I've been using Ryobi tools around the house for over 20 years. Way back before they had the iconic safety yellow or green or whatever you call this color. Back before the lithium batteries. And I've got a ton of tools with the 18 volt 1+ system. I've got a ton of batteries. And this thing right here has always been on my bucket list. And I told myself if I ever found one for a good deal, I was going to snatch it up. So finally, after years of looking, I found one on Marketplace. It was brand new in the box. And here it is. So we are going to be testing out this Ryobi 18 volt, basically portable generator that uses the 18 volt batteries to produce up to 1800 watts out of this inverter. And we're going to be looking at all the features, testing them all out, and seeing how they work. Now in the process of doing this, I'm going to be using a bunch of these, I guess we'll call them less than authentic batteries. And I know that this is not an 8 amp hour battery, but I found these things cheap. I've tested stuff like this on the channel before, and some results were good, some results were not as good, but we're going to test out a bunch of these, and then we're going to also test out some true Ryobi batteries, and see if there's any noticeable difference between them. So let's stop talking and let's start testing. Hey everybody, it's Chris from Family Geekery, and today we're going to be testing out this Ryobi portable generator that uses the 18 volt 1+ system batteries. Now I said I got this thing brand new in the box. I already took it out of the box, and let's see what else it comes with. It came with a nice little cover. This is like a canvas type cover that you can put over the top of it. I'm guessing so you can use it out at a work site or something and keep some of the rain from getting to the electronics itself. So that's pretty cool. And then it came with a charger, and it might not be exactly what you're thinking. It came with this as a charger, and we'll talk about what this thing does and what it's intended to do. But basically we got a USB-C to USB-C cable. We got a little portable, basically cell phone charger that comes with it. And we'll talk about its capabilities and again what it's meant to do. But this is of course the main attraction of the show, the portable generator itself. And basically you've got 8 slots for batteries, 4 on this side, 4 on the other side. You've got all your information and your inputs and outputs right here. And this will give you the capability of taking some batteries that you already have, slapping them in here, and depending on how many you put in, get up to 1800 watts of output. So whether you're using it on a job site to give yourself some AC, or if you're using it at home for an emergency power, if you lose power and you need to keep that refrigerator running, whatever the case is, that's what this is intended to do. So let's go ahead and start talking about some of the specs. Alright, so the best way to think about this thing in its simplest form is basically it's just a huge inverter for your 18 volt batteries. Now on the channel I've tested out several different inverters that use tool batteries, several different Ryobi inverters from like 100 watts up to 300 watts or something. And this is no different, it's just bigger and has more capability, and then it's got some other neat functions built into it. Now let's talk about the most important feature of this, and that is of course the inverter that gives you AC power out of the front here. And let's look at this little chart on the top here real quick that shows, based on how many batteries you install, how many watts you can expect to get out of it. So if you can't really read that right there, there it is. If you have just one battery in there, you can expect 450 watts out. If you put in 2, you can get 900. 3, you can get 1350. And if you have all 4 or any more than 4, then you can get the full 1800 watts out. So even by itself, just a single battery producing 450 watts, that's more than any of the other portable inverters that they offer. Now keep in mind that being able to deliver that much power is different than how long you can deliver that power, and that's all going to be based on how many amp hours each of your batteries is. So obviously the more batteries you put in, the more amp hours those batteries are, the longer the runtime you're going to get. But as far as just power capacity, how much it can create with your batteries, that's going to be based on that chart there. And I love the fact that they have that stickered on here so you don't have to keep your manual around with you to remember how many batteries you need for whatever type of tool that you're plugging in. Now once you got your batteries in there and you got the right amount of power that you're creating, when you turn it on, you're going to get all of your power right out here. And it's a pure sine wave inverter, it says. So you've got 3 full-sized AC receptacles there to power up your tools or whatever it is that you're going to be powering. And then in addition to that, we've got some DC outputs. So right here on the side, handy little USB ports. We've got 2 USBs, which are regular 15 amps. We've got 2 fast charge USBs, which are 18 amps. And then we've got 2 USB-Cs here that will do up to power delivery of 45 watts total. So if you've got some phones or tablets or whatever it is that you need to charge, you've got some handy little guys right here. And I'm sure as long as you have at least one battery in there, you'll be able to get the full output out of here. Now, as far as input capacity, we do have a USB-C port right down here at the bottom. And it's a Type-C power delivery. It says up to 60 watts. So remember this guy that we looked at, that it came with it? It comes with a nice fancy little, Ryobi green USB-C cable. And then a well-branded charger so you can remember which one goes with this power station here. And this is power delivery up to 65 watts out of that USB-C cable. So this gives you the ability of charging into here from the wall. And when you charge into here, it will sequentially charge your batteries. It'll only do one at a time. But at 60 watts, the book says it takes an estimated 20 minutes per amp hour. So if you have a 3 amp hour battery, it's going to take about an hour to charge that all the way up. If you've got 4 3 amp hour batteries in here, then it's going to take 4 hours to sequentially charge all those up. So obviously if you have a fast charger or even just a regular charger that came with your tool or one of the 6-pack chargers, that's going to charge your batteries a lot quicker. So this station right here is basically meant to be outputting, meant to being using your batteries for AC power versus a convenient way to charge your batteries, because it's nice to have at least that feature, but it's just not a very practical feature. Once you slap a bunch of batteries in here, it would take forever to charge them up. Now I believe they also offer a 60-watt solar panel for this, and because it's got the Ryobi name on it, it's not cheap, and I would suggest that's not a very cost-effective way to charge your batteries. It would be basically cheaper just to get a different solar generator of some sort to charge your batteries, and then use this for the high output. So even a small EcoFlow or a small Blue Eddy or something that you get for $150, use that to plug your charger into, charge up your batteries quick, have that thing recharging over solar, and then use this just for the generator function. But in a hitch, you do have at least the ability to charge a little bit at a very slow pace. Now, in addition to the outputs and inputs, you've got a little work light here. We'll look at that once we plug some batteries into it. We've got some Bluetooth functions that will talk to a phone. We'll look at that. And it does have the ability to parallel with another one of these. If you've got enough batteries and you've got a second one of these, you can parallel them together and get a ton of power out of them. But let's start off by slapping a couple batteries in here, turning this thing on, and seeing how it functions. Alright, so I'm going to start off by putting one of these batteries into one of the ports here, and doesn't matter which one. They're numbered so you can easily know which one is which on the screen here. But I just put that into number 1, and I'm going to hit this power button here. It says press and hold. And there it is, booting up. And it shows we got a battery in slot number 1 here. It shows all 8 batteries. It gives a little battery indicator to it. Shows you up in the upper right hand corner here what the functionality is, just in case you didn't reference your sticker first. So it says 450 watts. It shows a graph down here at the bottom of how much output watts you have. So since we're not drawing anything yet, it's not showing anything. And I'm guessing this is going to be a timer for what it approximates you've got left time-wise. It looks like it's got a little counting timer up here for what the actual runtime is. But while we're here, I'm going to go ahead and show you this light here. I've got a button over here for work light. So let's go ahead and press that. That's one click. This is basically a white LED light. Press it again, it gets a little bit dimmer. And then press it again, it's got red lights in there. Then press it again, it blinks with those red lights. And then press it again to turn it off. So a nice little bonus feature there, just have a work light in case you're working in a building that doesn't have any electricity and you just need a little bit of ambient light to help you out. But now that this thing is turned on, I can hear a little bit of a fan or something in there going. It's not loud at all. Looks like I've got a button here to turn on the inverter, so let's go ahead and turn that on. And then I heard a little fan again spin up in there just momentarily. So let's go ahead and plug something in to give this thing a load so we can look at this graph down here. I've got a little space heater here, the absolute enemy of portable generators. And it's got a low setting which should be under that 450 watts. That being said, it's probably going to chew that battery pretty good. So let's go ahead and turn it on to the low setting and see what it draws. And this is actually your watt meter, not a counter. and it's showing 324 watts, so up towards the higher end of that, and it's showing that it is depleting this battery pretty good. So I'm not sure how long this would actually run with one battery, especially since we're dealing with 8 amp hour batteries, which are really probably closer to 3 or 4 amp hour batteries. But at least it works. We're getting 324 watts out of there. I haven't heard any more fans spin up inside the actual machine itself. Maybe after a while of producing that 300 watts, it might spin up. Let's go ahead and turn this off and see what our battery does here. And it went up to 3 bars. So under load, it was really being taxed. But now that we turned it off, it's kind of relaxed a little bit. So let me go ahead and put the rest of these batteries in here, and then we'll see if we can get this thing cranking up to the higher wattage. I want to see if we put in 4 batteries and we turn this thing on, that it doesn't knock it all the way down to 1 bar. So let me set that up. I'll be right back. Alright, so I've got 4 batteries installed here on the side. Again, our generic batteries. We're showing an 1800 watt capacity up here now. I'm showing all 4 batteries being full, or at least full-ish. So let's go ahead and turn this space heater on again on the low setting. And yeah, so it's not depleting, or at least killing one battery really quick. It's going to kill all the batteries fairly quick. But we got the 300 watts coming out of here, and they seem to be sharing the load just fine. So let's go ahead and crank this thing up. And we can see now that where this little bar graph here used to be, 3/4 of the way up, it's only right here. So our load capacity, we can plug a lot more things in here now that we got 1800 watts. Of course, the more you plug in, the quicker you kill these batteries. Let's go ahead and crank this up to high. And now we're drawing 500 watts. This thing seems to be doing okay. We can see some of them knocked down to 2 bars instead of 3 bars. But let's go ahead and pause this draw real quick, because now that I've drawn some of the power out of these batteries, I want to plug in the charger and show you how that works. So let's turn this off. And let me set up the charger going into here, and I'll be right back. Alright, so I've got this plugged into the wall now. Let's plug this into here. And if you notice right away, it turned off the inverter. So you can't have this thing charging the batteries and drawing from the batteries at the same time. So now instead of having any kind of output, we only have input, and now we've got our input watts showing at 60 watts here, and the top battery here is now charging. So it's flashing that 4th battery indicator showing that it's charging. So while this is charging up, I'm going to go ahead and grab my phone that's got the app on it, and we'll take a look at that and see how the app interacts with the unit itself. Alright, so I've got my little test phone here, which I use for testing all these apps, and despite the fact that I have a million different ways of charging this thing up, it's always dead on me. So I've got it plugged in here. Interesting note, this does allow to charge while this thing is charging in, and it looks like the input watts might have dropped down. Is that because I plugged in my phone? Let's see. Maybe not. Maybe that's because this battery that it's charging is getting almost full, so it's slowed down the charging. So let's plug my phone back in. And I've downloaded the Ryobi app, and it's just a regular Ryobi app. There is a Gen Control or something like that app that's in the App Store under the name Ryobi. And I think that's what they used to use for this, but they've integrated in the Gen Control with the regular app now. So if you buy one of these and the instructions say to download the other one, don't do it. Just download the regular Ryobi app. And it's talking me through pairing this thing up. So it says hold this to pair. Now it's in pairing mode. So let's start pairing on here. And it is successful. So now it sees my generator there, 18 volt, 1800 watt power station. Shows me I've got 100% battery level. That may be just based off the fact that it thinks that all 4 of these are fully charged. We only drew a little bit out of them. They were fully charged before I started playing around with the space heater. Let's go ahead and plug into it and see everything that's got. So it's got the load level, the battery level. We can look at the battery detail here. It shows how many batteries you got plugged in. I don't think it has the ability to read what the amp hours on them are. We've got our input and output wattage, the session runtime, and that's just basically, again, a counter that started once we turned this thing on. Has no indication of how long it's going to continue to run. We've got the ability to turn the task light on to all those different settings, low, high, red, and blink. We've got the ability to change the LCD backlight. There is a button on here also to do that. And then we've got a button here to turn on the AC power, which obviously we can't do because we have the charger plugged in. But once we get that thing unplugged, we'll play around with that. We've got a shutdown timer, some shutdown options, and then some more settings. If we go into the more settings, it basically just shows the total runtime of the unit, I think over its lifetime, and then it gives you an option of naming this. In case you've got several of these, you can name them or number them so you know which one you're talking to. So nifty little app. We'll look at that again once we start drawing some more power out of this thing. But what I think I want to do now is I'm going to unplug the charger, take everything else out of it. I'm going to turn it off, turn it back on to kind of reset that timer clock there. And then I'm just going to put this thing on high, let it draw the batteries down until it shuts off, and see how long that lasts. So let me get that set up and I'll be right back. Alright, so I got everything powered down and unplugged. Let's go ahead and turn the station back on. Once it boots up, it should start that timer. There it is. So let's get this inverter going. And let's put this puppy on high. And I'm going to let this, like I said, draw the batteries all the way down. But before we leave it, let's go ahead and take a look at the app again. It shows the load level is 31%. That's going to match this little bar graph down here we've been looking at. The battery levels, it shows at 62, 68%. I don't think that battery level is going to be super accurate on this station, but it shows an input of 0 and an output of 507. Now, I don't think you'll ever have an input wattage showing up on here at the same time that you're outputting, because as soon as you plug anything in here and supply it power, it's going to kill this inverter. So let's go ahead and let this run, and I'll be back once it kills those batteries. Alright, so as you can see, we've depleted the batteries. It's got to a voltage that it's not happy with to draw any more power from these batteries. So it's saying press reset. We got a red light down here. I'm going to talk about the whole rest of the test just in a second, but I'm going to address this concern first. So let me see if this is the reset button it's talking about. Yep. So basically we turned off the inverter. It's got enough juice left in the batteries to power up the screen and to tell us, hey, this thing does not have enough voltage to continue to run the inverter. So go charge your batteries. So let me turn this thing off so it stops beeping. And let's talk about the test. Now I did keep the test in here at fast speed. If you fast forwarded past that, I'll talk about some of the things that you might have noticed. One thing I did notice is as the screen displayed the different bars of battery, basically 25, 50, 75, and 100, in the app where it showed the battery life, and I said I'm not sure how accurate that battery life is, every time one of those changed, the battery life changed. So when all 4 batteries showed full bars, it showed 100%. When all 4 batteries showed 3 bars, it showed 75%. Now if one went down to 2 bars and the other stayed at 3, it did the basic math on that. It added 75, 75, 75, and 50 divided by 4, and that's how many percentage it showed in the app for what the battery percentage was. So again, somewhat accurate, but not super accurate because you're basically rounding each battery off to the nearest 25%. Now the overall test ran for 17 minutes, and we'll do some math here in a second to see if that's acceptable or not for batteries. And then I hope you grabbed a drink or a snack because we're going to do a deep dive into this thing. That's what I like to do when I'm testing something. I'm going to run the same test on 4 authentic Ryobi batteries and see if that's any different. Now again, I said let's look at some math. We're going to turn this thing around here. Each of these batteries, which was labeled as 8 amp hours or 8,000 milliamp hours, is labeled as 144 watt hours. And that's just basically the 18 volts times the 8 amp hours gives you 144 watt hours. Now we know that's not true on these. If this was truly an 8 amp hour battery, this thing would be twice as big, twice as heavy. So I figured this thing was probably about a 4 amp hour battery based on the size and the weight. And that's what I'm going to test it up against. I've got some 4 amp hour batteries that are Ryobi brand. And like I said, we're going to do that test again. While I was running the test towards the end, after we got the warning about the low battery, I showed you that the low battery warning was on the front of the screen. The station started beeping, and then it sent a notification to the phone itself saying, hey, return to the station, we're about to shut off. So I think that's pretty cool. But also, while towards the end, you might have seen my hand come in the screen, I was testing the temperature of these batteries just to make sure they weren't getting super hot. Of course they are warm. Anytime you draw power out of batteries, it's going to be warm, but it wasn't dangerously warm or super hot. You can see even these fake batteries have some certifications on them about safety. I could print that with my printer too, so I'm not sure if that's true or not. When you buy these things, they always do list that they have all the safety stuff built into them, but again, who knows? But did we get 144 watt hours? Absolutely not. So let's pull up a calculator and do some quick math here. If I assume that these were 4 amp hour batteries, we got 18 volts times 4 amp hours, that'd be 72, so basically that's half of the 144. If I've got 4 of those, we're looking at 288 watt hours of power that I had plugged in here. Now, we'll never get 288 watt hours out of there because this is going through an inverter. Let's assume the inverter has a 80% efficiency. So let's multiply this times 0.8 or 80%, and we get 234. So 234 basically usable watt hours of power to come out of that inverter. And we were drawing basically 500 watts. So if I divide this by, I think it was 508 watts, and it stayed pretty constant, even when the battery started saying that they were low and it said it's about to shut down, it was still delivering 508 watts to that heater. The heater never hesitated until the very end when it shut off. Of course, it shut off. So we divide that by 508, and it says about 0.45, so that's 0.45 hours. So about 30 minutes, 27 minutes, somewhere in there. So if these were truly delivering 4 amp hours each, and I'm assuming that the efficiency on the inverter is 80%, we should have got about 27 minutes. We got 17. Now remember, I did run it for a minute or two when I was testing out the single battery and the 4 batteries together. I did charge it back up a tiny bit with that 60 watt charger, but overall we didn't get 27 minutes, I don't think. So is that a problem with these batteries not even being 4 amp hours, or is that a problem with the efficiency of this generator? The only way to find out is to go grab some real 4 amp hour batteries and do the test over. So let me go grab that, get it set up, and I'll be right back. Alright, so here I go. I got 4 amp hour batteries. These are all Ryobis. I've got one that looks a little different than the other ones, but they're all listed the same. None of these are labeled as the heavy duty version of the batteries that you can use on the higher draw tools. I think these are all just the standard ones, but at least it'll give us a baseline versus those generic ones. Now these are fresh out of the charger, but they have been used probably around the house several times with the vacuum and stuff like that. So they may not even test out as good as the brand new cheapos, but only one way to find out. As we look at the bottom of these are all listed as 4 amp hour, 72 watt hours. So at least we know what to expect. Let's pop them in, turn this thing on, and give her a test. Alright, so I got them plugged in. Let's go ahead. We're going to turn this on, turn the inverter on, turn this on, and then we'll watch the timer. Here we go. So we got it turned on. It shows 4 batteries all full. We get the timer going, so let's get this inverter turned on. Let's get the heater turned on. We've got the 507 watts coming out. So let me let this run, and I'll be back when it's done. Alright, so here we are again. It shut off completely, and it was just over about 25 minutes, 25 and a half minutes. So let's go ahead and reset this. We'll go ahead and power it down so it stops beeping. And what did that teach us? Well, first of all, it taught us that even these maybe slightly used batteries that I've had for a while last a lot longer than the brand new cheap ones. Let's see how much longer. Pull up my little calculator here again, and we said that these last, let's say, about 25 and a half minutes, and the other ones were about 17 and a half minutes. That shows about a 45% increase in time that this thing lasted. So basically about a 45% increase in capacity. That's assuming that the same efficiency of the inverter was happening between those 2 batteries, which I'm sure they were. That's assuming that both the batteries were 18 volts perfectly, which I'm sure they were. So if we're looking at a 50% increase, then those generic batteries were probably closer to 3 amp hour batteries. And if that's the case, is that a huge problem? Well, a 3 amp hour battery at Home Depot right now is about $50, and that's without any sales or anything. And I got those 4 generic batteries for under $100. So yes, they are cheaper per watt hour. You may be able to get the real Ryobi batteries on sale or a combo deal or something at Home Depot. They run those usually around every holiday weekend. So you may be able to get that price a little bit closer, but even then, for 4 batteries for under $100, if they're going to last about the same as a 3 amp hour battery, it's still a pretty good deal. I'll leave some links down below in case you're interested in checking out what those may look like. But they certainly performed well. They just didn't last as long as what they're advertised, which I don't think surprises anybody. But now that we've done these tests, let's go ahead and come back with some final thoughts and my opinions on if this whole overall station is a good deal or if it's something that's worth buying. Because like I said, I've been looking at it for a long time, and now that I've tested it, I've got some thoughts. Alright, time for some final thoughts. So this device here is basically a portable generator. We know that. It works great at that. And it's geared towards somebody that's got a bunch of these batteries already. So basically it's geared to someone like me. I've got a ton of these batteries. I'd love to have some way to use them in case there was a power outage. And this is definitely a lot more capable than those small little inverters that do 150 watts or 300 watts. You can definitely run a lot more high-powered devices from here. Now, when we started doing the math on those generic batteries, it wasn't working out too good. But when we did the math for them, I believe we said if they were 4 amp hour batteries and we had the 72 watt hours each, we'd end up with 288 watt hours of battery in this configuration right here. Now, going through an inverter that may be 80% efficient, we knocked that down to 230 or something like that. And I approximated that if we ran that 500 watt space heater off of it, it would last about 27 minutes. And with these batteries, it certainly ran pretty darn close to that. It was about 25 and a half minutes. So with these genuine batteries, these watt hours seem to be pretty darn accurate. So you can pretty reliably approximate how much runtime you can get out of this based on how many batteries you have, what size they are, and what your load's going to be. So if you knew you had to run, a refrigerator or maybe a CPAP machine or something else in a power outage, and you knew about how much that drew, you'd be able to do the quick math to figure out how many batteries you'd need and see if this thing would work out for you. Now, dollar for dollar, if you needed a, let's say, 300 watt hour power station, somewhere in that 250 to 300 watt hour capacity, it would be a heck of a lot cheaper and probably a lot more convenient to go grab an EcoFlow River Series or a Blue Eddy or a Jackery or something like that. You can get those anywhere from $120 to $200 in that size range. And that would probably be cheaper than, of course, buying this thing and then 4 batteries to give you that same capacity. So if you're just looking for battery backup or emergency power, that's definitely going to be the more efficient route. But that's not what we were saying. We were saying if you had a bunch of these batteries already, does it make sense to buy this? Well, again, that's basically going to depend. If you've got 4 amp hour batteries and you wanted to be able to use them in a power outage, I think it would still be cheaper to go buy that EcoFlow and use it. But if you needed 1800 watts out, then you're looking at something like a Delta 2 or Delta 3, which is more in the $400, $500, $600 range. And then at that point, it may make sense, if you've got enough batteries, to just go ahead and get one of these. Now, with all that being equal, the other big downside is if you've got an extended power outage and you wanted to be able to use solar panels to help keep this thing going or charge it up, then definitely you want to go with something like that EcoFlow, where you can get 500 watts on the Delta 2, 1000 watts on the Delta 3, feeding this thing with solar panels into that versus the 60 watts that I can get from a wall charger and not having the ability to even use the inverter while I'm charging it. So bottom line, look at your use case. If you've got any questions, throw them down in the comments below. I'll be happy to answer them. I hope this review was helpful to you. I hope you got something out of it. If you did, I appreciate a thumbs up. Go ahead and check out the rest of the channel. I've got lots of reviews on all those other power stations I was talking about. Small ones, big ones, inverters from several different tool types. So go check out that channel and hit the subscribe button if you want. That's going to wrap it up for this one. I thank you as always for watching. And until next time, peace out and geek out.